Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Planning Board meeting. Call the meeting to order. Frank, I'd like you to sit for Mr. Coviello, who's not going to be with us this evening. That's okay.
It is.
And the first item on our agenda is approval of minutes of April 16th, 2026.
Motion to approve the minutes?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I'd like to suspend the rules. Make a motion to suspend the rules for the purposes of bringing forward old business item B and new business item C for the purposes of postponement.
Second?
Discussion.
Not for suspending the rules.
So what we do when an applicant makes a request for postponement, we usually honor that request. There's nothing currently that requires a specific explanation as to why. We do have some explanations in the packet that have been submitted, but that's basically what will happen, and despite whatever you may find in the agenda, if the vote is to postpone these matters, they will be postponed until the next meeting. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And now you need the actual motions, correct, for postponement?
Yes.
I would make a motion that we postpone under old business item B, the request of Bora LLC, to our next June meeting?
Yes.
Is that the right month?
June 18th.
To the June 18th meeting.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And then I will further make the motion that we will, under new business, item C of Reagan Electric Company owner and Schimberg Development, move that postponement also to June 18th. Correct?
Yes.
Second?
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Those items are postponed until June. We have determination of completeness, subdivision review, the request of Jeanette McDonald as owner, Flipping Burgers LLC as applicant for property at 86 Farm Lane, requesting preliminary and final subdivision approval.
Make a motion to determine that item A is complete according to subdivision review regulations, contingent on the granting of any required waivers under section 4 of the agenda, and to accept the applications for consideration.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Okay. We also have determination of completeness for request of Jeanette McDonald as owner for Flipping Burgers LLC, applicant at 86 Farm Lane. This is site plan review, and also a request of 304 Maplewood LLC as owner for property at 304 Maplewood Avenue, requesting amended site plan review approval.
Make a motion, vote to determine that item A is complete.
No, B and C.
B and
B and C are complete.
Second?
B,
Discussion?
C, and D.
No, D postponed as well.
The motion is for items B and C to be accepted as complete for site plan. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have our public hearings and some other items on the agenda. The procedure for public hearings is presentation by the proponent, questions by the planning board members, public comment, limited comments to, for, or against the application or proposal. You have to provide your name and address. Anyone wishing to speak during the public comment must speak during the first round to speak in subsequent rounds. Comments are directed to me. First round, people have 3 minutes, oral comment only. Second round is up to 5 minutes. You can include a presentation, and third round is an additional up to 5 minutes, oral comment only, after which the hearings are closed and the board deliberates. The next item on our agenda is a request of Double MC LLC as owner for property at 134 Pleasant Street, requesting site plan review approval for the redevelopment of the site to include reuse and expansion of the existing structure and construction of new structure for residential and commercial uses with associated site improvements. This property is on Assessor's Map 116, Lot 30, and lies in Character District CD4 and Historic Districts. Since the last meeting, before the applicant speaks, I want to remind everyone that we stopped the meeting with the discussion with the applicant where there were 3 options on the table. 2 of those options have been explored and rejected by the applicant in the process. And the third option, which was to place the drive-through facility, which was the last remaining item that we were discussing last month, not place it, but leave it in the existing building. It's my understanding, and this can be explained by the applicant shortly, that that is the change that will be happening. And if that is the case, I think that was the last item we had for discussion. And that changes the entire staff memo recommendation as well, if that in fact is how this has, if that application has changed. As a matter of the record, I want the board to know that last Friday I did attend the open house at the Treadwell Mansion. I did see the owner, Mr. McNabb. He did mention to me that that was his intention to do that. That was the only thing I heard. We didn't engage in any other discussion about the application. So just so folks are aware, that conversation did take place, and it stopped at that, with that amount of information. So, Mr. Chagnon, if you would like to explain what the changes are. We're not looking to accept any new materials this evening. I think we have a process in mind that we've discussed with staff that might take care of that. So you can proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. John Shagnon from Haley Ward. And with me here tonight are some members of the project team. Terrence Parker, the landscape architect, Tracy Kozak, project architect, and Rebecca Brown from Gredman Peterson, traffic engineer. They're here to answer questions relative to the shift that you discussed. So at the meeting in April, the board talked about a number of things, and I think there was a lot of discussion, though, about the position that the change in location of the bank within the building would constitute a change to the drive-up, which is grandfathered in order to keep. So at the meeting, Mr. McNabb said he had a number of choices, one of which was to redesign or reapportion the interior space so that the bank would remain in the same location and therefore keep the drive-up as a pre-existing non-conforming use. And I'm here to say that that is his desire. He is going to do that. The board could issue an approval subject to that relocation. I can tell you we've looked at the plans, and that relocation of the bank facility will actually make less traffic because it's a little smaller, and the bank was a bigger driver of traffic and parking. Some of the bank space will be converted into additional dwelling units, but that change would not change the conformance of parking. There are no changes to the site plan. The site plan engineering, layout, open space, all of that is exactly the same. There's just a couple of notes that would need to be changed. That would change the use in Building A and the use in Building B, the use descriptions, but nothing else would change. So we would like to go forward with the understanding that a condition of approval would be that the plans be revised to reflect keeping the bank use in the existing footprint that it is now used.
So the plans would be changed so that the site and floor plans would reflect the bank staying in the existing building with the drive-through, basically as it is today. With the new proposals, what was going to be bank becomes office or apartments or whatever, but the net impacts decrease in terms of traffic.
Yes.
No change to parking?
The parking requirement goes down, so there's
Yeah.
now going to be a further excess in the number of provided spaces on site.
Okay. So if it's up to the board, but that's the sort of a thing that can be a condition subject to staff review of those revised plans when they're prepared. Questions of the applicant? Yes, Bill?
So the exit, if I understand right, the exit is not across the Parrot lot. It's out to Pleasant Street.
Yes, that's correct. When we came last month, we had redesigned the site to ingress and egress to Pleasant.
And the stormwater was understood but not yet nailed down when we talked last?
So, no, the stormwater was designed, and in fact, you should be taking a vote tonight on the conditional use permit portion of the application, which is for the stormwater connection across the Parrot Avenue parking lot.
Right.
That has not changed, and we can talk about that now or when that application comes up. But that application has been reviewed by the Conservation Commission, and they're recommending your approval.
Good.
So no changes to the site plan from what was looked at the last meeting, other than the change in the location of the bank associated with the drive-through.
Correct.
And
There
that's
would be
in-
no,
and that's-
absolutely no change to the site plans, other than where it says Building A, it would say a different use. Building B would a different use, so it would go from professional office, from bank and financial services to professional office and apartments.
So the footprints remain the same?
Yep, exactly, yep,
It's basically internal changes, okay.
yep. Architectural changes, yep.
Any other questions? Also, the board knows this can, if the board is so inclined, this can be a condition approval based on those plan changes being made as discussed and reflected based on what the applicant just said, because it does reflect what my understanding was coming to the meeting and talking with staff. So I think the conditions would be getting plans in conformance, site and floor plans in conformance with what was just represented, updated traffic and parking calculations that staff would review to confirm also what was stated. And is that it?
Yes, if you're ready to go to deliberations, as we said, I think the staff memo did include the planning department recommendations for conditions of approval as they were stated last month, and as we stated last month, those conditions are acceptable to the applicant.
I forgot to mention, there was a small mistake made in the packet. There was materials from the abutters that was included in tonight's packet that was actually not resubmitted. It was stuff that was copied over from prior meeting. So that wasn't new information that was submitted. Just point of clarification.
Thank you. The public comment material.
Right, the public comment material.
Yep.
Any questions? We're going to need a motion to do, well, here's
We
the
have a
thing.
public hearing, don't we?
No, we don't.
Oh, we don't have,
That was,
oh, 'cause
that
we
was
had
held
it
in
last-
March and closed, unless you want to reopen it, but.
We could reopen it, but that wasn't the intent.
I was confused.
Do we want to hear from the deputy city attorney on that topic?
Sure.
And while Trevor's coming up, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Joe has recused himself. Do we do anything about that other than mention he's recused?
Thank you for mentioning it, and it's noted. We don't have any other, we've only, well, yes, I suppose, Logan, you could sit on this one.
Yes,
Yes.
happy to do so.
Deputy city attorney.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you were alluding to at the last planning board meeting when this was considered, the public hearing was actually closed. And it was not made clear at that meeting that it would be continued to this present meeting. No noticing was made. Therefore, it would not be appropriate at this meeting for the board to take new evidence into the record. If the board wanted to reopen the meeting, it could do so by reposting at the next meeting, but you are certainly under no obligation to do so. If the board feels that it has enough information to act, then I would recommend that you act.
Thank you. Yes, Andrew.
I do agree that we should act on it. I would just want to be very clear as to the motion language and what a affirmative vote versus negative vote is saying.
Looks like you're ready to do a motion.
No idea how to start that.
It would be a conditional approval, subject to the site and floor plans being revised to reflect the fact that the drive-through bank facilities would be maintained in the existing building,
Yeah.
and that the traffic and parking calculations would be revised to reflect the same change, and also reflecting that there's no increased impact. So with reduced impacts, and the last issue that was discussed with the owner at this meeting with the three options that I mentioned actually before he came tonight, and he selected one of those. So we were told what might happen. That is what has happened. So it's those conditions, I think those are the two, Peter?
Those are the two.
So it's those two conditions. Staff would review to ensure that that's, so it'd be a conditional approval. This is not unusual. It'd be administrative from this point. If those changes are made, staff would approve it. Ultimately, I have to sign those plans. As folks may or may not know, I sign all the site plan applications when they're finally finished. And that's that. Yes.
I'll take a stab at it.
You want to do findings of fact first?
I make a motion that we vote to find that the site plan application meets the requirements set forth in the site plan regulations, section 2.9 evaluation criteria, and adopt the findings of fact as amended regarding the bank location use staying in the existing footprint building.
Second.
Discussion. I think that covers it on findings of fact.
I thought so.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I will continue to vote to grant site plan approval with the following conditions, beginning with having revisions to the site and floor plans in conformance with stated changes of the bank remaining in the existing building with the existing footprint, along with stated changes regarding updates to traffic and parking based off of that move, ensuring that there is no increased impact.
Do we also need to include the conditions 2.1 through 2.7?
Oh, I was just making sure I got that one right before I
Okay,
went on.
got it.
I was looking up to make sure I hadn't missed anything.
Great job.
All right, and that will also then, yep.
Excuse me, I don't know that it's the entire banking function that has to remain in that building. It's really just the banking function as it relates to the drive-through.
I don't disagree with you.
I don't know what the intent of the owner is to do with the buildings, but where the banking business takes place,
Well,
really.
maybe we can talk about this after I finish making the motion?
It's my understanding the banking is being kept in the existing building. So let's not complicate it.
So to continue the motion, and then conditions to be satisfied subsequent to final approval of site plan, but prior to issuance of a building permit or commencement of any site work, construction activity, we would add in 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, and then conditions to be satisfied subsequent to the commencement of site work, construction activity, but prior to release of surety bond or certificate of occupancy would be 2.6 and 2.7.
Can I just?
Second.
Yeah.
And I was going to do the next one second.
Yeah. Is there a
Just a question on the first part. Would you want to add that the said changes would be reviewed by the planning department staff for conformance?
I will add to mine that that no changes or impacts increase reviewed by staff.
That was good catch.
Okay. I hadn't written that down.
Can I just clarify? I was going to make that comment, but also, can we just add that as 2.6 under prior to issuance
Okay,
of a building
it
permit?
shouldn't be prior to that? Shouldn't you
Well,
be
it'll
reviewing these
all-
before they actually get there, is my point.
So 2.1 through 2.5, currently, they have to satisfy all these before they can get a building permit.
Right, but I want these changes in plans verified by staff prior to that going forward, is my opinion. That's why I had it first before the conditions.
So it'll be,
Maybe 1.1 or 2.1A. That was kind of, I think it has to go above all of those. That is my point. Because we need those changes in order for everything else to move forward based off of our approval.
So can you just shift all of the decimal places one?
I mean, they're not
It could
really
be
in any
211.
order. It's, I mean, they can satisfy these in any order. They just have to
Any
all be
order.
done. They have to,
All-
all these
yeah.
have to be satisfied before they can
Okay.
submit for a building permit.
I just sort of saw this as like
Yeah.
being the top
Okay.
one that needs to be done
If you want to make
first.
that 2.1, we can.
Yes, please.
I'm sure they do as well. given that-
I don't disagree, but just so we're all clear.
So we have 2.1 through 2.7 revised, and then 2.8 and 2.9. And there was a second, as I recall. And
I second the revision.
that was going to be my question. Do folks understand the motion?
We just did some renumbering, that's all.
You understand the motion?
I do, yes.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Want me to continue? I'd also make a motion, we vote to recommend the city council approve a license and/or easement for a private stormwater pipe and related drainage infrastructure to cross city-owned property within the Parrott Avenue municipal parking lot as shown on the left, on the off-site grading and drainage plans submitted for 134 Pleasant Street, with the condition that city shall retain the authority to require the removal, modification, or relocation of the stormwater infrastructure at any time, at the sole expense of the property owner, should the city determine such action is necessary for municipal purposes, public improvements, or changes to city operations, and subject to final legal review by the city attorney and the Department of Public Works.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I'm done, right?
Thank you.
I was moving on. I thought I was done.
Would it be appropriate to ask, or possible to ask, that we take the
Or B?
item B?
4B.
under new business, or do you want to come back to it?
Well, the applicant's standing at the podium. Show,
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to suspend the rules to bring forth item 4B.
Second?
any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Request of Double MC LLC as applicant, and the city of Portsmouth as owner for property at 0 Parrott Avenue, requesting a wetland conditional use permit from section 1010-1750 for the installation of new treated stormwater pipe below the Parrott Avenue parking lot as part of the redevelopment of 134 Pleasant Street. There will be 601 square feet of disturbance within the wetland buffer area, which is located beneath the existing parking lot. Said property is located in Assessor's Map 115, Lot 4-1, and lies in the municipal M and historic districts. Mr. Shagnon, I believe you're here to present that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. John Shagnon from Haley Ward. Here tonight with me is Mark McNabb, and this is associated with the 134 Pleasant Street development. In order to provide appropriate stormwater infrastructure, bringing it into compliance with the desire to separate stormwater and sewer flows, the application was, through the TAC process, referred by the Public Works Department to a stormwater pipe connection that would be the closest location of a separated stormwater pipe. That work is within 100 feet of the mill pond and therefore in the city's buffer. So we're here tonight to request a wetland conditional use permit. The criteria, the 5 criteria to grant are listed in the application package. I would defer to the written record, and there are no areas within the vegetated buffer impacted or altered, number 6, so it really does not apply. The Conservation Commission reviewed the project on April 8th, and they recommended approval, subject to the addition of the wetland scientist stamp, which has been added to the site package, or the application package, in the existing conditions plan. So without any further time tonight, if it's acceptable, we would just ask you to approve this wetland conditional use permit, subject to the planning department recommendations for conditions.
Questions of the applicant?
Really quick, I'm sure you have an answer to this. Was it not feasible to go west and then down whatever that newly created road is going to be, instead of bisecting the Parrot Ave lot?
So the original design of this offsite connection went to the west and then along the courthouse driveway.
Yeah.
Which would be not through the middle of the lot, but the pipe connection down there turned out to not be stormwater separated.
I see.
So the department asked us to move to this location.
So a little bit of efficiency to bisect the lot.
Yeah, unfortunately, it bisects the lot, but
Yeah.
it gets to the separated drainage infrastructure.
Okay.
I know I'm going to get asked this question when it comes to a city council meeting, so how long do we think that project will take? Well, because I'm thinking that lot, as we all know, is always filled with people parking there, so how many parking spots for how length of time might actually be out of service?
That's a good question. Where it's a cut, dig, place, cover, it's a lot quicker time frame. I would imagine they could probably install at least 200 or 300 feet a day of pipe, and it would probably take 3 or 4 days. And there's a section there that would be, obviously losing any parking spots is critical, but it doesn't impact the entire lot. You can just sort of cut off 10 spaces a day probably, or something of that nature, and the work can be staged from the active construction at 134, so it doesn't need a laydown area.
I just know I'll get the question, so I need to have the answer. Thank you.
Okay.
John, are you going to start at the north and move south, or south and move north?
I think you would want to start at the low point, so you'll start at the south and move north.
And so if you do that, the north part will be open at the beginning, the first couple of days. Then as a couple of days go by, the south will open up for circulation, the way you're doing it with cut and cover?
Yes.
Okay.
And there are multiple entrance and exit points, luckily, so.
Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing on this. Anybody here or on Zoom wishes to speak to or against this CUP application?
No one's raised their hand.
Anybody here? Last call. Going to close the public hearing.
Make a motion, we vote to find the conditional use permit application meets the requirements set forth in section 10.1017.50 of the ordinance and adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Discussion.
I'd just like to point out the benefits of actually having this happen is because the city, now we have a developer who's actually going to help us with our stormwater sewer separation. That's what's actually going on here. So this was actually a benefit to the city because we're now going to have a section done that would have been at our cost, now done by somebody else. So that, I just want everyone to understand what just happened here is that is actually a true benefit to the city, so.
And the environment.
And the environment. And our sewer plant.
That too. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Keep going, Paul?
Sure. I make a motion, we vote to grant the conditional use permit as presented.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving
Where are we now?
back to the agenda.
4A,
That's where I was going.
Farm Lane.
Request of Jeanette McDonald, owner and Flipping Burgers LLC as applicant for property at 86 Farm Lane, requesting preliminary and final subdivision approval and site plan review approval to subdivide one lot into 3 lots with associated site improvements. Said property is located in Assessor's Map 236, Lot 74, and lies within the Single Residence B District. Who's here to present this application? I believe Mr. Simonis is recusing himself.
Mr. Almeida.
Mr. Almeida is coming back. Logan, can you sit for Mr. Simonis?
I can. I'll stay in this chair though, if that's cool.
Funny guy.
Good evening, Eric Weinberg with Altus Engineering. With me tonight also is Brett Berger, applicant with Flipping Burgers. Jeanette McMaster, who's the owner, school teacher, was called to school for an evening meeting. What we're proposing is 3-lot residential subdivision. 2 new homes will be constructed at the 86 Farm Lane address, and the 86 Farm Lane home will remain. In May of 2025, yeah, I can't believe a year has gone, we received zoning relief to have the parcels with less than the required lot area and keep the existing home to have less than the minimum rear yard, and lots with 75 feet of frontage where 100 feet is required. Following the zoning relief, Jeanette was contemplating how to develop the property, whether she was going to do it, whether she was going to get a developer. So ultimately, she chose to work with Brett, and so that's how we got to this moment. An interesting piece of property because the Long Meadow Lane is a public right-of-way. It's not in use in this portion. It continues out to the other end to where Betty's Dream is. Betty's Dream is actually constructed through part of the right-of-way, and it's been partially developed. I think the road many years ago was roughed in. When you look at the existing conditions survey, you'll see that sewer was constructed in the right-of-way, and actually we thought there was some errors, and we looked through the record files and working with DPW realized that not only there's a single sewer pipe there, there's actually 2. And that's because the sewer was constructed, and then anyone who's been here long enough remembers the very successful Omni Mall. And the Omni Mall they were expecting a lot of flow from that, and that serves that area. The Omni Mall was where Home Depot is. So to build the mall, they had to improve the sewer infrastructure through that area. So that's why they built the double barrel sewer through that area. It's just a little bit of interesting history as you go through some of these projects. So what we got was zoning relief to construct the homes off the existing right-of-way. In the right-of-way, as you can see on the site plan, the subdivision plan, we shifted the roadway to the east toward Jeanette's house, and the reason we did that was the existing right-of-way goes through a portion of the shed and a hedgerow on the abutting property closer to the Spalding Turnpike. We didn't, out of respect for the abutter, we didn't want to impact their shed, we didn't want to impact the hedgerow, so we shifted the road over, took some right-of-way off of Jeanette's property near the house, and building the road that way. And then once we get past the house, you can see it shifts back into the center line of the right-of-way. And it's very doubtful that the roadway will ever be continued to Long Meadow, but we certainly made the provisions that it would, or out towards Betty's Dream, it is Long Meadow. So instead of doing a cul-de-sac to serve 2 lots, we requested a waiver to build a hammerhead. We've had that reviewed by Fire and Safety all through TAC to provide that on one of the lots so that emergency vehicles, if they need to get down to the 2 homes, there's a way mechanism for them to turn around. If for some reason the road is continued, that easement onto the abutting property will sunset. We're proposing only a 22-foot wide paved surface on this, just because it's servicing only 2 homes. We've got the support of Fire and Safety and TAC. For water, there is, you can go to the utilities plan. We're proposing, there's water, existing water in Farm Lane. What we're proposing is a new hydrant at the front of Farm Lane in this roadway. That will actually help the entire neighborhood because there isn't a hydrant nearby. And then we have a smaller 4-inch service servicing the two homes. We went with a smaller service as approved by DPW because if we went with a 6 or an 8-inch line with two homes, it would it would end up with stale water and wouldn't get enough turnover. So we have only a 4-inch line with a blow off at the end to serve those two homes. We're proposing a new utility pole on our side of the road and then underground utilities going into the site with a transformer near the hammerhead. I believe that there's an error in the staff memo. Peter and I spoke about it that said that we were asking for a waiver for overhead utilities, and that's not accurate. We're not proposing overhead utilities. The existing site topography, if you can go to the site grading plan, would be great, Peter, which is 138, I guess, in the package. Right now, the way when the roadway was constructed, or the subgrade was constructed for the roadway, it created a dam and inhibited any runoff from leaving the site. So we have lower, I'll call it the western corner of the site, creates a dam and all the water infiltrates into the ground so that we have very little runoff leaving the site. And so what we've done with the stormwater management design is we're providing two bioretention basins on the property that will treat the runoff from both the roadway as well as the lot development with an overflow that goes down the city right away and ties into the city drainage to the north of the site. That runoff that runs through there's a culvert that was part of when the roadway was roughed in, is a culvert crossing, and it's part of the Hodgson Brook watershed, just so it's very clear. That's generally where we are. As mentioned, we're asked for waivers to have the hammerhead in lieu of the cul-de-sac, 22 feet of pavement in lieu of 32 feet of pavement with a sidewalk. And the last thing I do want to go into, and I know that the staff memo didn't support this waiver, but this is a subdivision. And because we're creating more than two houses or ultimately three houses, we have to go through site plan review as part of this process. Staff is recommending, and it's been tradition that that the site plan is recorded. Well, the site plan here is almost exactly as the subdivision. It doesn't have any pertinent information that 5, 10, 50 years from now would cause anything but concern or confusion, because these are the two boxes and shown as the potential home are not defined as what they will be. They're potential home, and all the information that's pertinent for deeds, for recording and so forth is on the subdivision plan. So we would like that the board strongly consider that the site plan for a residential 3-lot subdivision is not recorded, and that you just record the subdivision plan. If you find that there's some notes that's on the site plan that would be applicable, I don't think there are, we would be happy to put them on the subdivision plan. I think that having two plans recorded would be very confusing for this development. I think I'm out of words. Got any questions?
Which sheet would you suggest being recorded?
The previous sheet, it is 134 in the package, so it's that sheet right there.
Talking about C1. Subdivision and easement plan.
I'm looking at just the farm lane submission. What's your sheet number, Eric?
It's,
C1, shouldn't it?
Yep.
C1 I have.
C1, got it.
yeah, C1.
So this would be the sheet that would be recorded.
That would be the one that would be recorded. It has the easement, it has the hammerhead, that would be on, at the drainage easements, it has the setback, has the lot areas, it has the road layout.
And what you're suggesting is when the homes are actually designed and laid out?
They would, it would be no different than a vacant lot, that they just need to comply with zoning, that you would never record the location of a home on a residential subdivision. Now, if this were an apartment complex and it was truly a site plan, I think that it's appropriate that the plan would be recorded, because we're not creating lot lines on a subdivision, on a site plan. This is where we're creating lot lines and only lot lines.
What's the objection to recording the site plan? Just confusion?
I think that it's redundancy and it's confusion.
If a note were added to the site plan, didn't mean to upset you?
I got a couple of years.
Yeah. A note could be added to the site plan saying, see subdivision for boundary information, that sort of a thing, or whatever, but go ahead.
I was going to say, the subdivision plan that gets recorded could have a note saying, site plan on record at Portsmouth City Hall,
Yep.
Planning and Sustainability Department. And you could even list a file number if there was one or something. I guess my only question is, and I'm trying to scan through all of these, is any notes that relate to drainage or anything like that, I would want to make sure are on the subdivision plan in case, to put on notice anyone that, would read this in the future would truly understand all of the drainage needs of the lots.
Well, I mean, that would be in the deeds as well, and there are drainage easements and because, that's a good segue, the drainage is on both lots, there's going to be a recorded homeowners association as well.
Okay. Right where I was going. Okay, then I'd be good.
I had another question on the stormwater going off-site. Eric, you mentioned this in existing, that long 12-inch culvert, that's an existing culvert?
There's an existing cross culvert, so if you go back to
It's shown on C.
C4. At the very top right of the drawing, right there is the existing cross culvert that we're tying into that's in the right-of-way, and that,
So the cross culvert is the diagonal going across the proposed road? Is that the one?
that goes across the existing right-of-way.
Across the existing right-of-way, but the proposed road, the end of the proposed road.
Well, the end of the,
Don't touch it.
Don't touch the screen.
You might need the microphone.
Yep,
yeah.
and you need the mic.
You know the drill.
what a rookie. So this is the existing drainage that's there. We're going to build this in the right-of-way, and this is where the roadway ends. And so this is the drainage that on the lot, this is the drainage that's actually on both lots. This is the hammerhead. So the roadway ends here. We got drainage infrastructure that's partially on the private property, and then in the right-of-way, heading down and connecting into that existing drain manhole.
So that was my question. The big, long culvert that doesn't exist. You're proposing to construct that. And do you have necessary reasons for that? How does that work with Public Works?
It will be, because it's a public road, that will all
Just
be
need
public
permission.
infrastructure.
Just need permission.
Yeah, yeah, we'll need to do a drainage connection permit as we go and do the work. I think that, there was a long debate in legal about whether or not it was a private road and public road. Because there's public infrastructure in it already, it's a public road. I think there's probably feelings from DPW that they wish this was a private road, because now as a public road, it will probably need to be maintained by the city.
Right. Did you want to add anything on the site plan recording?
Well, I was just wondering if it could be called the subdivision site plan. Easement plan.
If you, we can talk to the surveyor who stamps it, but I don't see a problem why it can't be called subdivision site plan.
I mean, I don't know if that would solve it. Trevor left, so
How dare
He left.
you might.
Well, the subdivision plan has to be recorded, no
Right.
question about that.
Absolutely.
I mean, I hark back to, I know recorded at the registry is a 3-4 lot subdivision that I happen to live in one of the lots now, and the squares of where the houses are was actually on the plan.
I like Councilor Moreau's suggestion about a note on the subdivision plan to see the city files for the site plan.
With the full site plan, right.
Full site plan, because unless there's something missing on the subdivision plan, and I don't think there is. It's unusual to have a site plan for single-family homes, so I'll add that.
In addition to confusion, is there any other hardship that would be experienced by strict conformity?
I think that the biggest is the confusion, and that it serves no real purpose, because the houses that are depicted on are conceptual.
The other way to do it would be to do it and just say those are potential building envelopes, and just, not make it specific.
Or even remove them. I don't know that it's required to have those boxes in there.
Well, site plans are usually intended to show improvements, so otherwise. Any other questions to the applicant? Yes, Bill?
Conceptually, are there 2 site plans, or 3, or 1? If it's 1 or 2, then we're not involved, are we?
1 or 2.
Site plans?
Oh, site
One
plan
or
is,
2 units.
it's 3 units,
It's 2 new units, but 1 is
Total
the
of
existing.
existing.
Total of 3.
That-
1 lot to 3 lots with 3 houses, even though 1's existing.
So the city's requirements to prepare a site plan, they've done that. It's a subdivision, they've prepared the subdivision plan. I don't feel strongly either way about it, I think, I can see the potential confusion, but
More importantly, I know how incredibly difficult it is if the plans are too busy to get them recorded at the Registry of Deeds, because I've gone through this multiple times in my day job. So site plans can tend to be a lot busier and have a lot of things on them, and it might take several tries before they actually get approved and recorded. So I'm fine with the note on the subdivision plan, and if it makes you happy, showing a building envelope on the new lots, I think is a pretty easy thing to do. And definitely having a note on the subdivision plan that a full site plan details are located on file with the city, I think should be sufficient for anyone that's reading the plan of record.
I agree, but I'll scroll back. You misunderstood. I was thinking of the building envelope label on the site plan.
Oh,
I don't think it
instead of-
needs to be added to the
Need to- yeah, okay.
subdivision plan. I think subdivision plan is fine with your note.
I misunderstood what you said.
No problem.
I was trying to make you happy.
Trying to make you. So that is one option for that part of the application, but we do have to have a public hearing on this. Any other questions of the applicant before I open the public hearing? Did you have anything to comment on the public? Okay.
I'm good.
I'm going to open the public hearing. Is anybody here or on Zoom wishes to speak to, for, or against this application?
We got a hand up, sorry.
Yes.
My name is Catherine Gray. I live at 32 Farm Lane. Been there for 46 years. There is a fire hydrant on Farm Lane. I think this is fine. I just don't understand, how many houses are you putting there? 2. Okay, I just wasn't sure because all the chit-chat going on. So, okay, but Jeanette can do that. Just increase your police force, because it's Indy 500 on Farm Lane. Yes, there's 4 stop signs, but they don't matter. You know, you could give out, if you're a cop, you can give out 50 tickets a day. So yeah, I'm for Jeanette, that's fine. No problem. Okay, any questions?
We don't do questions. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, you're welcome. As you were.
Anybody else here or on Zoom wishes to speak to, for, or against this application?
If you're on Zoom and like to speak, please raise your hand. Okay. We have Julie.
Julie on Zoom?
Hello.
Yes, we have you.
I am Julie Bertel. I'm at 71 Meadow Road, and I believe I'm property number 4 that is cited within the plan. I made most of my main points in my objection letter that I submitted earlier, but my main concern is for the wetlands area. You did talk briefly about the sewer and the capacity of what it can handle. I really just do want to stress how old the sewer system is in this neighborhood and how many issues we've had with it already. Most of our neighbors are really hesitant about adding 2 more houses to an already stressed system. I know many of the other neighborhoods are being updated, especially downtown, the Bartlett Street area. So I know that our neighborhood is probably on the list for that. So I'd really like to have that looked into to see what the capacity of the sewers are, if this actually can handle what they're proposing. There's a lot said on speculation of where the manhole covers are and the access to sewers. I mean, this is because this area is really overgrown. Calling it a paper road is kind of an exaggeration. It's really just a forest. You know, it's completely overgrown. It's not walkable. I can't even access the back of the property myself, and my property is connected to it. So I would say that putting in a pipe like that would be very disruptive to the majority of the area that is outside of these lots. And so I just want to make that known, that this will impact the surrounding area a lot more than I think is being recorded. And yeah, I really would like an analysis of how it will affect the wetlands area there and specifically the sewer. And that's all I have to add. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else here or on Zoom wishes to speak to, for, or against this application?
No other hands on Zoom.
Hands. I'm going to close the first round. Any second round speakers wish to speak to, for, or against this application? last call for any second round speakers. Going to close the public hearing.
Oh, I was about to speak. I thought I got hung. Mr. Chairman, I will take a stab at making a motion to vote to grant a requested waiver from the Section 6 general requirements regarding allowing a hammerhead versus a cul-de-sac with a roadway that is 22 feet instead of 32 feet of pavement with a sidewalk. And sorry, I'm trying to do this on the fly and look at my notes. I think strict conformity would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and a waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of regulations.
I'll second.
Discussion?
I mean, we're talking about a pretty short, it's not like a true cul-de-sac, so I think having the ability to be able to turn around, it's not that far off of the main road. I can see this being a very less traveled road, and therefore having the requirement of having a sidewalk there may not be a real necessity or even a benefit to any of the people that are actually living there.
Any other discussion? Motion on the waiver is pending. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. I will make, we need to do the other waiver first, right? Yeah. I will also make a motion that we vote to grant a requested waiver. Is that under general requirements? Section 6 general requirements regarding the recording of both a site plan and subdivision plan. Specific circumstances relative to the subdivision or conditions of the land in such subdivision indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of our regulations. And I would like to add that the subdivision plan would be recorded with a note regarding the full site plan being on file with the city of Portsmouth. And if there's a file number attached to that, could be added as well. Whatever specifics that would make that.
Second.
Discussion?
I'm still wondering how there's a hardship here created for the applicant.
It's not, that's not the standard.
That's not the standard, yeah.
Hardship is standard for variance of the Board of Adjustment. It's just, the standards are laid out in the memo, but it's not as high as a hardship. It's just basically an accommodation. So if you feel the spirit and intent of the ordinance is met, and there was a logic for it, you could vote for it. If you don't, then you vote against it. But it's not a hardship standard.
Technically, I put specific circumstances relative to the subdivision or conditions of the land in the subdivision indicate the waiver would properly carry out the spirit and intent of our regulations.
Personally, as I said, I don't feel super strongly about it, but I also don't see a great benefit to having the site plan recorded, especially if it's on file at the city
Right.
files, which it will be. So, but you are entitled to do.
Granting of this waiver, is this something we would expect to see other applicants in the future asking for the same waiver? Is it create
Possible for minor subdivisions, yes. Our minimum site plan review is 3 units. And because the existing building counts as the first unit, the 2 new houses then count as 2 and 3. That's what triggers site plan review. And I can tell you at 3 units, it's unusual, yes. So we don't get a lot of those, but we get a few of them.
There
Does
may
that
be a
justify a
change, there may be a
change to the
change to the
regulation?
There may be a
Might be.
change to the regulations.
We
That's-
can take a look at that.
Okay.
But if the request, as the applicant said, if this was an apartment building or a commercial, there would not be basis to
Right.
accept that request for a waiver.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? on the second waiver request. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, I would make a motion that we vote to find the subdivision application meets the requirements set forth in the subdivision rules and regulations and adopt the findings of fact. Should this be as we've amended because of the waivers, or no? No? Okay, as presented then.
Second.
Got confused there for a moment.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I will continue and vote to grant that preliminary and final subdivision approval with the following conditions of 2.1 and 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4 included from the staff memo.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, moving right along. Site plan review approval. Vote to find that the site plan application meets the requirements set forth in site plan regulations, section 2.9 evaluation criteria, and adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I will continue and make a motion that we vote to grant site plan approval with the following conditions, 2.1 through 2.6 of the staff memo, but I have a question after I get a second.
Second.
I believe this area has not gone through sewer separation yet, and that might be some of the concerns that were raised by the public, might be because there isn't separate drainage, stormwater drainage for the sewer, and so the sewer lines might get overwhelmed. I believe that is the case, but I think, I don't want to put it on the applicant, but I would like us to be able to at least make part of this, maybe that is, they're putting in drain lines, and that's why I think there isn't separate drain lines already existing. So I just wanted to make sure that we had that information out there for people, that this might be one of those plans that is in the works in the future. I don't know exactly every neighborhood and when they're going to be addressed, but that might be what the concern is regarding thinking the sewer lines are overwhelmed. It might be especially during high rain events. I just wanted to make that public. And I wasn't trying to make it part of the approval. I just wanted to really make sure that we put that out there. And if they have questions, they can certainly reach out to the city regarding if that's on a timeline.
Do you want to remove 2.2 since you just?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I got way ahead of myself,
Sorry.
didn't I? Yes, let's remove the, yeah, because the easements will be with the subdivision, so they're not with the site plan. Remove stipulation 2.2 from
Second
Mike.
agrees.
Yeah.
Okay. Second agrees.
Sorry about that.
Sure.
Got ahead of myself. I thought I was on a roll.
You were. You are. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good.
Very good.
Next item is request of Society of Protection of Forests as owner for property located at 400 Little Harbor Road, requesting a wetland conditional use permit from section 101550 for the construction of 2 sections of existing shoreline trails at the Creek Farm property. This project will rebuild 300 linear feet of eroded trail, approximately 5 feet wide, for a total of 1,500 square feet of permanent impact. This property is on Assessor's Map 203, Lot 8, and it is in the rural district. Who is here to present this application? And I'll note Mr. Simonis is now sitting. So, Frank, I'm going to ask you to, no, you're sitting for Mr. Coviello, so I guess you get to sit back, Logan.
I'm Dylan Summers, Stewardship Project Manager for the Society of Protection of New Hampshire Forest. And I'm here. Eric Weinbribe of Altus Engineering has provided some pro bono advice and support on this project. So we are proposing a trail maintenance project on the Little Harbor Loop Trail, which is on our Creek Farm property in Portsmouth. This trail was created prior to Forest Society ownership. I don't know all of the history, but it's likely that the trail was built in the late 19th century as part of the historic Carey Cottage Summer Estate. So it's a pretty old trail, and just like many trails that have been around for a long time, high use, many decades of use, has resulted in impacts that have degraded trail conditions over time. The trail has a 300-foot section that has been through a combination of erosion and compaction. The trail has fallen below grade and forms a slight depression in the landscape. That depression has a tendency, in the kind of gentle terrain that the trail goes through, has a tendency to collect and hold water. And as a result, often has muddy trail conditions, especially during springtime, winter thaws, and during large rain events. In areas with muddy trails, the tendency that people avoiding sections of mud have a tendency to widen the trail over time and cause additional impacts and widen the area of mud as they go around it. So we are proposing to repair this section of trail with a structure referred to in trail building as a turnpike, where we will use fill to create a raised trail surface above the existing depression that was created over time. That will restore more natural drainage to the site. And in addition, where needed, ditches along the bottom or the bottom side of the trail, the low elevation side of the trail, downhill, will be used to get water away from the trail, following the contours, the natural contours of the terrain, with as little modification of the existing site as possible, needed to achieve a dry, stable section of trail. This section of trail is in the 100-foot buffer of the tidal wetland of Sagamore Creek. The site was delineated in 2020 or 2019 for a waterline project for the Cary Cottage by Joseph Noel, New Hampshire certified wetland scientist. He returned March of this year to revisit the site and look at the condition, make sure that conditions hadn't changed, confirm that conditions hadn't changed, and redelineate the highest observable tide line for the tidal wetland adjacent to our project. So our project would be following the standards for construction of a turnpike as outlined in the New Hampshire Best Management Practices for Trail Construction and Maintenance manual published by the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. Some turnpikes in certain circumstances use low retaining walls when they need to be raised, when the trail surface needs to be raised pretty high above the existing ground to get the tread surface above the water table. In this circumstance, that's not needed, so we would be building a modified version of a turnpike that does not need retaining walls on either side, because the surfacing will retain naturally, as it will only be raised a few inches above the existing trail surface. The turnpike will be built with layers. A layer of coarse drainage stone will be laid down first to provide more drainage that will allow water to escape that area quickly. And then that will be surfaced with an aggregate that will be compacted into a firm surface that will both shed water off to either side from a crowned middle, as well as water that does get down will go into that coarse drainage stone layer and be able to get away from the trail more quickly. So that should address a lot of the issues with water sitting in that depression and remaining there over time. We'll use geotextile fabric to separate those layers so they don't mix over time, and that the structure will hold up for a lot longer. We originally proposed this project to be about 270 feet in two sections that were not connected. And that is the project as approved for, or recommended for approval by the Conservation Commission in April. Since then, after discussions with our contractor, we have decided that it would be best to also include the center 30 feet. If you go to the current site plan, which should be the page up, yep, that right there, you can see that there's a middle section, 30 feet that we've included, making the total section that we're addressing 300 linear feet, and about 5 feet wide means about 1,500 square feet. The reasoning behind including that section is to kind of create a contiguous tread surface through that section of trail, and especially so that the section that we're not building the turnpike on, or we weren't going to build the turnpike on, wouldn't become a new low spot that could then eventually have mud and wet problems that the current trail has. So we're proposing that change to, for a better outcome for this project. Additionally, we've had some figuring out where we were going to stockpile material during this project. It's not visible on the site plan, but right off of the, if you go down to the bottom, toward the bottom of the site plan, there's a, it was not visible on the site plan without changing the scale, but there's a parking area right back there. Unfortunately, we leased the Perry Cottage to another organization, and there are apartments, and those parking areas are pretty well used, and there's pretty limited parking, so we can't use those areas as for stockpiling materials, so we'll be stockpiling on the lawn just next to those parking areas. About a third of the area that we'll be stockpiling material is inside the 100-foot buffer. So there will be some additional temporary impacts. We'll be using silt fencing to contain that stockpile area and make sure that it stays contained to that zone, and it's on existing lawn. And I think that's all I have to say for now. I'm happy to take questions.
Questions of the applicant?
Extra 150 square feet that was not presented to the Conservation Commission. And they did make a couple of recommendations, conditions, suggestions, mitigating the use of the existing trail along the shoreline in future planning efforts to reduce buffer impacts. Do you think that this extra 150 is kind of aligned with what they were suggesting there?
So they were, in the conversations with the Conservation Commission, there were, they had concerns about other sections of the trail. And I think when they're in that section, in that recommendation, they were really talking about future planning for this trail and how we want to approach future maintenance on other sections of the trail, which run, so from this location, the trail goes around a point and then runs along the shoreline. It's pretty much right on the shore. We're not planning anything in that area, but they wanted us to consider the possibility of relocation or doing something differently with how we manage that area in the future if we were to make any changes. We don't have any changes planned at the moment. So I think that concerning the extra impact from what we proposed when we talked with the Conservation Commission, this is on an existing trail, so we are not having, the impact is not spreading beyond the existing trail footprint. So there's no real, the inclusion of a little more fill does not change the footprint of the trail dramatically. And if it was to be that we would have maintenance issues with that middle section because we didn't create a contiguous trail surface through there, then that could result in user-created damage to the surrounding area, increasing the footprint of the trail as people avoid areas of mud. So I think that given the potential for future impacts, that our proposed change does not have a substantial impact and is offset by the protection that we're going to provide to the surrounding areas by making this small change.
Well said.
Thank you.
So you're going to also add temporary impacts along in the buffer, along the parking areas, but you didn't talk about whether or not, if those areas are damaged, whether or not you would restore them.
Oh, my apologies. Yes, we will absolutely restore those areas to their original condition. We're working with a contractor who I've worked with before. He has done a fantastic job for us in the past. You know, a lot of trail builders care a lot about the quality of their work, and trail building is an aesthetic endeavor. So most builders care about the impact they're having and do a lot of effort to restore things to their original condition. So it's as if they weren't there. So we will restore that section of lawn after the project is over. Yes, absolutely.
2 questions. One's a curiosity.
Sure.
About how long do you anticipate the lifespan of this type of trail to be?
That's a great question. So the lifespan of a trail structure like this is indefinite with maintenance.
Sure.
There will be needed maintenance over time. As the trail surface, there's some erosion. We might add surfacing to patch up areas. But overall, you know, the materials we're using don't rot, unlike wood. There's not much there. The way they're built, they're pretty stable. And so even with high use, they're much more stable than the natural ground. So the expected lifespan is indefinite as long as we keep up with maintenance, which we intend to do.
My second question is, what season is best to do this work?
So the driest season is probably the best season to do this work.
We don't have a lot of that.
We don't have a lot of that. That is true. So we plan this work for probably in the fall, most likely. It could be late summer, but we wouldn't do this sort of project in the spring just because conditions on the ground aren't right for it. And that being said, I don't think it would have a substantial difference to do this during a wet period of time. You know, the finished product is going to set up and be stable, even if it's wet or there are wet conditions during construction. So I'm not really too worried about timing. I don't think it makes a dramatic difference, but it's easier to do the work when in dry conditions, and any small impacts may be lessened.
Sounds great.
Any other questions to the applicant?
I have one more. You had mentioned using silt fence. Would you have an objection to using silt socks so that we make sure all the habitat in the area isn't cut off from a specific area?
Yes, absolutely. So in the, we will be using 2 different methods of erosion control, and I apologize for not mentioning this earlier. Along the trail, the section of trail that's being built, we will be using silt socks. It's a much more natural and appropriate method of erosion control for that place. The only place that I was going to plan on using silt fence is around the material stockpiles, which there'll be sort of an additional barrier that'll prevent those stockpiles from migrating downhill.
Okay, thank you.
No other questions to the applicant? Thank you. I'm going to open the public hearing.
Thank you.
If anybody here on Zoom wishes to speak to, for, or against this application? Anybody on Zoom?
We have one person, but they've not raised their hand.
If you need to speak on Zoom, you need to raise your hand. Otherwise, I'm going to close the public hearing.
We have a member of the public wishing to speak.
We have a member of the public wishes to speak.
Eric Weinrib, 9 Middle Road. I do some volunteer work with the society. I've been involved in going out to the property with the Conservation Commission. I strongly support this application. I think that adding the extra area that was not mentioned by to the Conservation Commission is appropriate. Because it's discontinuous area, it would have been disturbed further by going back and forth with the equipment. So I think that this is a good solution, is to continue the work as a longer section. I think it's great benefit to the city, and I think everyone's going to enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here or on Zoom wish to speak to or for or against this application? Last call. Public hearing is closed.
Make a motion?
Yes.
Vote to find the conditional use permit application meets the requirements set forth in section 10.1017.50 of the ordinance and adopt the findings of facts as presented.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Vote to grant the conditional use permit with the conditions outlined in the memo.
Second.
Discussion. Yes.
Would the motion maker be okay with adding a 2.2 to that? Any areas of temporary impact will be returned to their original condition? You're the motion.
Yes.
Second.
You're good with that? Amended motion. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. A request of 304 Maplewood LLC for property at 304 Maplewood Avenue, requesting an amended site plan approval for a 1,011 square foot addition to the existing office building. This property is located in Assessor's Map 140 Lot 7 and lies within Character District 4L2 and Historic District. Who is here to present this application?
Joe Coronati with Jones Beach Engineers. With me, I have Rob Graham representing the owners. This is a existing property. 304 Maplewood's been a existing commercial use for many years, decades, and it's currently a office building. And the owners would like to add just over 1,000 square foot addition to the property or to the building in the rear. This addition meets all your setbacks. We meet all your open space and building coverage requirements for this zone. This property is located in your historic district, and the architects, McHenry Architecture, has gone before the HDC, received approval for that. For the design of the building, it's also located just barely, but it's located in the 250-foot shoreline protection setback, which we've also received a shoreline protection permit from the state already for this. We've been to TAC, received comments, and they've recommended that we come before you. We've actually already addressed their comments as well on the plans that were submitted. So it's a small office addition in the rear of the building. There's no change to the front of the site. The part you see from the road will never look any different. It's the same parking layout, same building, same utilities. The only work's being done in the rear of the site. Happy to answer questions. That's all I have.
Yes, ma'am.
If you could just speak a little bit to the abutters claim that there was a fence put over the property line, it would be really helpful.
Yes, so we have on the east side of the lot, we have a neighbor to the east. There's a fence that's out there. There's a chain link fence that runs along a portion of that. And I believe there's maybe some discrepancy as to where the property line may lie. We wanted to remove the fence and build a new stockade fence, but after getting the abutters' comments, looking at the site, the owners have decided that they would just leave the chain link fence where it's located, and we would add a stockade fence on our side of the chain link, which does not disrupt their use. I believe they have animals, dogs, they don't want us to, there'd be a lot of, issues removing the fence in that time period of getting a new fence installed, so we just agreed to keep the old fence and put the new one right up against it, so it looks good and doesn't disrupt their life.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Fences make good neighbors.
Your parking calculations, did they change at all with the addition?
They technically require that we need more parking, but we have enough parking on site to accommodate that based on your square foot and the existing use that's on the property. They don't feel they need more parking either. They have a certain number of employees. They're currently a little stuffed into some office space. This just literally allows the existing employees to spread out.
Okay.
And they're not even adding any staff. They just need more space.
Any other questions of the applicant? Yes, Frank.
Just to clarify, to make sure I understood that correctly, the parking requirement does go up, but you already have parking present to accommodate that.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Going to open the public hearing? That wasn't your hand up, was it?
No.
You? Okay. Open the public hearings. Anybody here or on Zoom wishes to speak to, for, or against this application? That's not a person?
It is, but there are no
No hand
hands.
up?
No hand.
Last call. I'm going to close the public hearing unless you raise your hand. Going to close the public hearing.
Make a motion? Move we vote to find that the site plan application meets the requirements set forth in the site plan regulation, section 2.9, evaluation criteria, and adopt the findings of facts as presented.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I move we vote to grant the site plan approval with the conditions to be satisfied subsequent to final approval of the site plan, but prior to the issuance of a building permit or the commencement of any site work or construction activity as outlined in the memo.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. We have a request of Sea Level LLC as owner for property at 185, 187 Wentworth Road, requesting a one-year extension to their wetland conditional use permit that was granted June 18th of last year.
Move to grant a one-year extension of the wetland conditional use permit to June 25th, 2027.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a request of 361 Hanover Steam Factory LLC as owner for property located at 361 Hanover Street, requesting a one-year extension to their site plan approval that was granted August 21st of last year.
I will recuse on this vote.
We'll vote to grant a one-year extension of the site plan approval to August 21, 2027.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just have a question.
Yes.
How many extensions can a plan get?
Site plan can get one extension like this.
Okay.
If they require a second extension, it has to go to TAC first and then planning board.
Okay.
And can have an optional public hearing. You can't deny a second extension without a public hearing.
Okay.
And then for a site plan, you can receive subsequent extensions.
I recused on this originally, so I'm recusing
Okay.
on this vote. So
That makes
Logan can
sense.
vote for me.
So, you're back on deck.
Wanted him to know that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Quick, before we close the evening out, that we did have originally a meeting with the HDC scheduled for next week, which is our normal extra meeting night. but that has been occupied by, I think, the budget.
City council budget, yes.
We cannot be bumping that.
We bump you.
The HDC is very anxious to have a discussion with us with respect to the historic district and the master plan. I don't think it needs to be a long meeting, but I agree, it's an important meeting. Is the board willing to have a special meeting, provided we could do a polling, if people could fit it in to do that? We could even have it early. I would guess no more than an hour.
Yes?
Does it make sense to make it the hour before our next meeting in June, or is that too
That's a
far out?
possibility too. I'll check with them.
Do you have-
We moved housing to the second Thursday next month, so
So we don't, that's not a conflict.
it's not a conflict.
So we could start at 6,
So
potentially.
possibly at 6,
Yeah.
start early at the next meeting. That might, if the HDC can do it, then that might work for us.
June 18th.
June 18th?
At our June meeting?
They might ask for the same thing, for it to be before their meeting.
They probably will. I'll negotiate.
When is their meeting?
So the board preference is if I can get them here an hour early for our meeting, okay.
Yep.
I spoke with our master plan consultants today, just as an update. They're preparing a series of questions they want to post on the city's website for flash vote polling of residents, and they're going to circulate those draft questions to us for input and staff before they're posted, so be on the lookout for that. They're probably going to be looking at questions about possible zoning amendments, and I asked that they try to make those as visual as possible, because most people don't know what a zoning ordinance is, much less what a setback or a build-to or a coverage or anything like that is. So they're working on that, and that'll be happening soon. That's interesting.
Mr. Chair,
If anyone has a phone near their microphone, it tends to do that.
Mr. Chair, if I can put in a plug for Flash Vote for members of the board, for people watching, it is possible still to sign up to be a Flash Vote official voter, if you will. So that you can access that on the city website.
I'll put in another plug for Flash Vote. I spoke with one of the owners and originators of the system and how it technically works. We get kind of geeky about it. It's an amazing tool.
We currently have over 800 signees, if you will, or people who have signed up to take the polls, and it would be great to add to that.
Now, tying into the master plan issues, Bill had a question he would like to raise.
Yeah, I'm interested in knowing, and the city should be able to help us with this, is the status of the infrastructure in the outer Woodbury, outer Market Street area. We've got about 1,000 new residents out in that area and projects that are underway. And I don't, and I don't think most people do really understand the implications for roadways, potentially for sewer water, potentially for recreation, what we're doing in that part of the city. In the master plan, we've talked about having some assessment of infrastructure capacity. I haven't seen what form or scope that'll be, but that's not here with us yet, and we are reviewing projects out in that area. So I'd feel that I could do a more effective job if I had, the wisdom of the Department of Public Works and the Recreation Department and others, highways, about what is happening in the outer Market Street, Woodbury area.
Sewer and water in particular, or, because I think the street issues, those would be covered by a traffic study. If and when something is proposed, that's a requirement.
Can I speak to this a little bit, Mr. Chair?
Well, a traffic study, if it comes from a developer, it's going to probably be limited in scope to what's directly impacted by that developer. I'm interested in a broader view and kind of the cumulative effect of all that we're doing.
If I might, we just had a budget public hearing on water and sewer and the other enterprise funds, so it'll be worth tuning into the May 13th budget work session. We talk a little bit about use and availability and capacity, so that's a great tool to go back and watch. And if you're interested in specific projects, you can go on our city website and sign up for updates on all of the projects that include those going on in that Woodbury Ave corridor. So we've inundated the website and some meetings most recently with that information. And one of the highlights from last Wednesday's conversation was that water usage citywide is down from 10 years ago. So we are managing water better, and there's a lot of resources out there that we've spoken to recently that you could take advantage of.
That was a May 13th meeting, you said?
It was the May 13th budget work session.
Yeah, there was a lot of great information, especially about the fact that with the sewer separation project, the flows going through our plants are actually less than they were a decade ago.
Would that include roads as well?
There will be some conversation about roads, and if you're interested in roadway-specific projects, you can go on the city website, and there are ways to get updates on specific road projects.
Through the DPW.
Another hand.
On the topic of the master plan, the representation of people in Portsmouth in terms of like responding to the surveys, I think has been problematic. The fact that only 16% of respondents were renters when a little under half the city is renters. And I think part of that is renters don't always understand that they have a voice in the city because they think just property owners, and they don't necessarily understand that like they're paying property taxes through their rent and things. So I don't know if there's a way that we can make sure that we are promoting this as you have a voice in the city. And I know obviously parents of young families have been underrepresented, and some of that's come down to when things are being scheduled. I think the big master plan meeting was the opening night of the Little Harbor 5th grade play, which is a huge deal for the 5th graders there. It was the week before April vacation, so a lot of families were trying to get ready for whatever their plans were. And I don't know if you know this, but baseball season in Portsmouth is huge, and it was a practice game night. So I think if you're not going to those games or going to those things, you're not going to see those voices. Maybe having it online would help parents, but I haven't seen anything through like working with Seacoast Community School, who have the information of almost every family in Portsmouth because at least one of their kids is in one of our programs. We could literally send out a message on Brightwheel that has the link and get hundreds of families.
Okay, great.
So I think it's in how we're putting this out. There might be ways that we could bring in people who are being underrepresented in the...
If you know of ways like that you can, as a planning board person, that's a wonderful thing to bring up and to help with the process. The outreach is something that I discussed specifically with the consultants today. They're very aware that they feel the hole is in the data as well. That's one of the reasons to do the extended flash voting system. There are budgetary issues, so
yeah.
The alternatives are rely on this board, because it's a planning board process, to know of resources like you just mentioned to help get more people to input, to do more online.
in my phone right here, I have access to every elementary school family
Okay, so
who
it's on
is in
you.
our program, so.
Putting it on you.
I think,
The alternative is for us individually to volunteer to do extra meetings, and that's a heavy lift, I think, so.
In
Well,
effort
talk
to
about
help Ryan, is there a specific link or landing page that we can be sending out to
Or
those?
flash vote.
The flash vote,
So just the flash vote?
Well, and also the master plan website,
Yeah.
on our website, and
And-
that has a link to where you can make comments.
Got it.
And all of the boards that were up at that
Yeah.
meeting are on the website, so they can send comments back regarding those.
And when we get the questions for input for additional flash voting, then the consultants can put all those links in, so we've got it all in the same message. You got it handy to send out.
also offering food at events is very helpful if you're trying to get parents there, because they don't want to cook dinner.
We had food.
There was food.
There was food.
There was.
I ate.
And with that, I think we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.